Okay. So we're live. I'm checking this page here.
How many freaking screens
We're
does
good to
Tanner
go.
have? You're like looking up, left, right.
Yeah, he's got a ton, but okay, I think we're good to go. So, as it's sort of a starting point, today's going to be a little bit weird. I'm here with my friend Kaelob Miller
How's it
that
going?
I know from high school, but our relationship is kind of weird, huh?
Yeah, it's like it's existed for a while, but you and I've kind of been strangers who just share a relationship through your brother, and that's about it.
Yeah. Because I didn't really associate with you in high school at all. Like, I mean, you were there.
I mean, we did some speech and debate, and that was about it.
Yeah, I think we had different friend circles.
And I was like, you were, and not that I was saying you were a prep, but you were a nice dressed guy. You were student body
Yeah,
officer,
right.
and I had some like long skinny jeans, like some long black hair and some skinny jeans going on. So we weren't.
Caleb needs to turn up his volume.
I need to
Caleb,
turn
you
my
need to
volume
turn
up.
up. Yeah, this
Okay.
is learning process. Remember your
Turn up his
Uh,
mixer. If he has a mixer, turn up his mic on his end because it's kind of
noted. For anybody who's watching, that's my brother Tanner. You probably already know that because you already
Okay.
know who I am.
Do I sound better now? Ask Tanner if I sound good now.
Tanner, does he sound good?
I just adjusted my mixer.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out.
So basically, let's explain. I
He sounds better, but if he could be like a little higher, it'd be better. But he's fine for now.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
I turned it up a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay, we're golden.
Beautiful. Okay, so what are we doing here? To explain. Okay, doing things a little bit different. We're here on my channel. Most of the people who will see this will be DIY dads and those who have followed my van build since last year. So this is going to be a little strange for some of those people. And if you're watching this and you kind of want to hang out, you're more than welcome to. This video and series of broadcasts are really just designed to kind of document what my friend Caleb and I have been talking about lately. This all kind of started back in December, January. Things got kind of weird, and I threw myself into a bunch of projects and work, and I kind of lost time. And I started listening to podcasts because I didn't have time otherwise or couldn't really do anything. And things just kind of exploded. I started reading. I mean, I've read like 16 books already this year. And I started listening to Joe Rogan and these people like Jordan B. Peterson and just all these awesome people who are having conversations. They started coming up. And Kaelob, who is also on here, he started talking about the same stuff. We actually started Facebook chat. You want to kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I think so. How you were talking about how you just started listening to podcasts because you didn't have enough time to actually do whatever, and it's just convenient to listen in on those. That's kind of how I was. Kind of the opposite. I had an excess amount of time that I wasn't doing anything, and I'm like, maybe I should fill my time wisely. And I found Joe Rogan, and I found Jordan Peterson and a bunch of others, and there for a minute, I thought I was the only one, in all of Utah. I was like, good Lord, am I the only one that knows this guy? And then I actually noticed that you started listening to them. And I'm like, okay, let's create a group of individuals, like-minded individuals, and let's, share ideas and come up with something. And it's like one of us was Plato, the other one was, Socrates, and we were just having a philosophical discussion is what we did. And we made this Facebook group. It was a messenger group, and we called it Elon Musk Boys. And basically, we were just fascinated with Elon Musk and how successful he is and how influential he is. I mean, the guy shot a car into space. So, like, if you can do that, you're a pretty interesting guy. And so we created this Facebook group to just kind of discuss our ideas, our whether it be political, philosophical, personal, what we've read. And we got, there's us two and there's two others. And the other two are, they've got their own things going on in life. And I think you and I were the ones that were kind of taking it more serious. And then one day I just got a text message from Spencer saying, hey, like, I know you, but I don't know anything about you. And we had this phone call. It was like a 2-hour phone call. And we just kind of figured out who we were. He told me part of his life story. I told him part of mine. And see, that was only a couple of weeks ago, I think. And we had the brilliant idea of, because we both share similar interests. And one of those interests is Jordan Peterson. You're like, hey, let's watch Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning lectures. And when we're done, let's have a discussion about it. And it started from us just, maybe we'll have a FaceTime chat and we'll discuss it, to, maybe we should record this, to now we're live on YouTube having a discussion. So that's kind of where it backgrounds from. It's just Elon Musk boys to where we are now.
Yeah. And like, I don't claim to know anything at all. I'm pretty stupid when it comes to all of this stuff anyway, but as far as like our conversation, like how it went down a couple weeks back, I didn't remember half the stuff you said. And it's just because we were on the phone for like 2 hours, and you actually came up with the idea of like, man, we should actually document this, because then we could go back over it and kind of analyze things, because,
And it's because while you were actually talking to me, you were talking to me about, it was a girl or something, and it related to me so well. I was standing outside. I was like, oh crap, I need to go get a notebook and a piece of paper. And I ran into my room, grabbed this notebook, and started writing stuff down. And by the time I'd got in my room, I'd forgotten half of what I wanted to write down. And that's, I was like, this would just be so convenient if I could just go back in time and watch this over again. And then it related, to podcasts, and with Jordan Peterson's lectures, I think that's the wonderful thing, is if you're on YouTube watching something, you can pause it and go back 15, 20 seconds and watch it again. You can watch it 10 times until it finally sticks. But when you're on a phone call, if you're in real life, like, you got one shot, and unless you want to be like awkward and say, wait, can you repeat that like 20 more times? Because I find myself doing that all the time with the lectures, and like there'll be something
true, dude.
Especially with Jordan, because like he'll just say something so profound, and then you listen to it and you're like, oh yeah, I have no idea what that means. And you watch it like 20 times, and then it finally clicks. And that's kind of where I was standing when I was like, hey, let's document this, because now we'll be able to look back on it, go over it again, and be like, oh wait, I missed that. I forgot to write that down. And now we have documentation.
Mm-hmm. Documentation, a method. So it's kind of an outline for this first video. So those of you who are watching and can kind of understand what we're going to go over, and then also so I can keep myself sane. Kaelob mentioned that we've been watching this professor named Jordan B. Peterson. He's based in Toronto, Canada. We watched one of his lectures, his first lecture, called Maps of Meaning. And it's like 2 hours and 30 minutes long, but it's just so packed with information. And we've got a couple points. We're going to address each one. Things are going to get kind of crazy, kind of deep. We're going to basically just waste our time, because what else are we going to do? It's Saturday or Sunday night. But yeah, as far as points go, like the first point we're going to talk about is just who we are. That's the big one. Who we are as humans and people, and just, we're all just so screwed. Second point is belief systems. That one's crazy. God, who he is, religion, art. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how B. Peterson goes into the chaos theory, a little bit of chaos and order, and what happens when you break a paradigm or perception. And then our purpose, why we do things. Why do we get depressed? Why do people just make such a mess of this life? And we're going to see what happens. So First question, so Jordan B. Peterson, what do you think about him, Kaelob?
So we'll begin. We'll go back to July of last year. And I was living up in the city, didn't have a job, wasn't doing anything with my life, just hanging out. And I really didn't have any structure. I didn't have a routine. I had nothing. I'd wake up, go to the gym, and then I spend the rest of the day just kind of procrastinating or watching crazy YouTube videos or movies. And I remember stumbling upon Joe Rogan, and I was like, "What is this? Just two guys talking for 2 hours? Like, this is boring. I want to watch a movie. I want to see pretty imagery, not just one bald guy sitting there talking." And so I'm like, I'll give it the time of day. I'll watch one, and I realized that this guy was talking about some deep stuff. And the first one I watched was Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan talk, and they talked about like pyramids, ancient civilizations, and that really intrigued me. And so I kind of skimmed through some of the other podcasts that he had, and then I actually went to Reddit and I Googled who are some interesting Joe Rogan guests, and one of the most popular ones was Jordan Peterson. I'm like, okay, I'll watch this guy. And so it was about mid-July when I started watching him, and just what he talked about. So he first talked about, I remember him talking about it was Bill C-16 in Canada about gender pronouns. And then he started talking about the 20th century. And I didn't know much about the gender pronoun thing. That was news to me. But when he started talking about the 20th century with Soviet Russia, the Holocaust, I've always had a strong desire to learn about that kind of stuff. And it always interested me what happened with World War II and World War I, mainly World War II. And he just seemed to know so much about it. Like, he was talking about stuff I had never heard before. I was like, okay, well, this guy knows a lot about history, but what else does he know? And so I started watching just more of his lectures and kind of his little 5-minute clips about life advice and stuff that people had put together. And at a time in my life where I had no structure, no routine, he was someone who I looked at, and he gave a lot of advice on how to gain structure to my life, how to get a routine that wouldn't only be good for my life, but it would be good for those around me, and how to create a routine that would be good for myself, for those around me in the short term and the long term, and how to find a purpose. And a lot of people describe Jordan Peterson as the father figure that they've never had. And a lot of his videos, a lot of people comment that, like, how, you've taught me what my father never taught me. And, not that my father wasn't a good guy. Like, I loved my dad, but he and I just didn't get along to the degree in which he could have taught me everything. And then I look at Jordan Peterson, and I mean, this guy has taught me more than anybody has ever taught me in my entire life, I think, next to myself. And it's because of Jordan Peterson that I've been able to teach myself things. So I love Jordan clear to death. I think that, and I love him to a fault almost. Like, he's like a celebrity in my eyes, which is kind of dangerous. But no, I think he has a very just cause. And I think he knows a lot more than I will ever hope to know. And he's passionate about what he knows. And he doesn't make mistakes. I don't want to say he doesn't make mistakes, but he's very wise, and he's very cautious at making mistakes on his videos and stuff, because he's really cautious with what he says.
Dude, he's eloquent. Like, the way that he handles himself, he catches himself mid-sentence and then takes the time to correct whatever he said. I think that's awesome.
And I think there's only one instance when I was watching him that he didn't even necessarily slip up, but he did kind of lose his temperament just for a second. And it was on a Vice interview. And he kind of went off just a little bit, but I mean, his level of self-control in a conversation and an argument is something I aspire to have. So really, I think Jordan Peterson to me is a role model.
In what way? Like, you want to be a 50-year-old psychology professor?
So I've actually always been interested in psychology. And even in high school, I thought to myself, like, maybe I'll pursue psychology. And it was either that or history, or just get rich and famous like we all hope to be. But with Jordan, I mean, that guy knows a lot about history, and he's he's an amazing psychologist. And it was probably late August, early September, and I was standing in the shower, and I got Jordan Peterson playing on YouTube, and he says this thing, and he says, for all, and this is just going to be kind of paraphrasing. He said, "We've only got one life, or we may only have one life. So why not aim for the highest pursuit you possibly can?" Because, and in his Maps of Meaning lecture, he says, if you don't aim at anything, you'll never hit what you don't aim for. And that resonated with me, because I was like, wait a minute, like, I can be whatever I want to be, to a certain degree. But if I want to be a psychologist, I can be a psychologist if I'm willing to do the work to aim for the pursuit. And then he said, aim for the highest degree of whatever you want to aim at. And I was like, okay, like, what's the highest degree of psychology? That's like if there's psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist, which is getting your doctorate or your MD. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, I've got one life. I might as well shoot for it. And if I, even if I only make it to master's degree, at least I aimed high, and I got as high as I possibly could. And I think that's the thing that's why I idolize Jordan Peterson, is because he inspired me to want to be like him. Like, he loves psychology. I love psychology. I love history, and especially with what he studied in history. I don't know much about the Bible as he does. Like, I've only touched that much of the Bible, and he's probably knows it, forwards and backwards and all the narratives in it. But, and it's probably cliche to say, but like, I want to be like Jordan Peterson, but he's just inspired me to a degree where I'm like, I want to influence the lives of people like he influenced the life of me.
Yeah, Jordan, the stuff that he's doing right now, it's kind of insane. Like, with the whole SJW movement and how much publicity he's getting on all of these news sources, and the way that he handles himself, like, he's exploded. He wasn't on the map at all 7 months ago. And thank God, right? Because now we've both kind of see him. I guess this is kind of how I stumbled upon him last semester. So there was just stuff that I started noticing, like that I was stuck in my routine. I have like 2 jobs. I'm just floating through life and making videos here and there. I wasn't in the van anymore, and so that was a bummer, right? Who doesn't want to live in something that you built for an entire summer? And on top of that, so I break my foot, and that was back in August. Okay, so I go from this super active person, running every morning, climbing, doing outdoor adventure, just having the funnest time of my life, to nothing. I sat on my friend's couch every single day, and I had to go to school. Like, you take hell, and it's literally, you could probably tour around hell on one of those scooters that I had. I'm pretty sure they hand those out at the gate. Like, oh dude, it was so humiliating. And I couldn't hang out with anybody, because one, all of my friends do the same shit that I do. They go climbing, they do videos, they do just the funnest stuff. And when you break yourself in such a way as to limit your mobility, that goes straight out the window. I was the kid during high noon in summertime who was sick and had to watch his friends play outside from his window. That was me. So I started feeling just really depressed. I don't want to admit that, because I'm usually a pretty positive person, but yeah, it was a form of depression. And so here I am watching everything kind of go on, and I'm sitting there playing video games and not really hanging out with anybody. And I started picking up on these podcasts, and I started thinking about like who I am and what my purpose is. And I kind of have like this existential crisis, and lo and behold, Jordan Peterson shows up. Okay. Jordan B. Peterson. And he starts talking about why people do anything, and why people, because we're all insane. We don't admit it. We're all just so crazy, and there's stuff going on with everybody's life, and we all hide it. It's all Instagram and it's all social media, and he's kind of hitting on these topics, and all of a sudden I can start seeing how crazy the world is right now. Like, we're all just hyper aware. Have you noticed that? Like with social media and stuff, like it's definitely not what it was before. It's all just very faked and very like.
So, yes, I have. So I tried staying away from social media for a bit, and because I felt like, so let's go back to a year ago. A year ago, I was on social media all the time. I was posting, 1, 2 times a day, and I felt like the person I was on social media was a completely different person than who I am in real life. And then I think from being on social media so much, the person I am on social media started to kind of bleed into my real life. And I see that with a lot of people. Like you don't know who they are.
No, you don't. You see the 5%, the very best of the best, and it's nobody ever posts anything depressing because that's always seen as being needy and just not acceptable. And it shouldn't be that way because that's real life.
And that's kind of where I'm relating to, like how my social media personality was bleeding into my real life, was because I would get on social media, and of course, as everyone does, they just want to, they want to look good. They want to put on a face, and like, oh yeah, I had a great time at the river. These are all my great friends. Life is great, Then their next post is, oh, I love my job. This is so great. Life is perfect. And you kind of fake a smile, and then you get off social media and you kind of fake that smile, throughout your day, and you try and be that person, when in all reality it's like you get on Facebook and you see all these people with happy go lucky posts, and you have no idea what they're dealing with. And I think that's also an issue, because when we meet them in person, we think they're just some happy person with no problems whatsoever, when in reality they've got some real stuff they're dealing with. And so, and I don't know, that's just what I think about social media. It's just, I think
I agree 100%, because I started noticing these things. Like I was listening to Jordan Peterson, and he's talking about how we're all just born into these cultures and into our friend circles and stuff, and we reflect the kind of things that are around us. But I think we're starting to see that it's just not real. And I started, what I noticed music wise, it's so strange. Every single artist, pop artist, is writing songs that are just depressing as hell. Like, do you listen to Jeremy Zucker?
I have not.
Okay, so Jeremy Zucker put a song out 2 days ago. Shout out to him. He's super good. The song is called All the Kids Are Depressed. And it's like super catchy and really fun, but no, it is depressing. He sings about like kids being on pills and just faking smiles, and he's wondering how it's going down because he's got his own shit that he's dealing with. But so he's got that song. AJR came out with Sober Up a couple months ago, which talks about being depressed and kind of just disillusioned with his own friends in life. Logic put out his song a year ago that was about suicide, right? He's got the suicide prevention hotline number in the song itself. I was like, holy crap. Like, here we are just kind of faking our way through life. Like, oh yeah, everything's really good. Da, da, da. But culturally, we're all just so screwed up. Every single person.
And with that, it seems like so many people are screwed up that it makes me wonder personally how much of it is real and how much of it is a fad, like kind of a trend. And has it become so much of a trend that people are actually starting to become depressed? Because it seems like everyone, this younger generation mainly, it seems like all these younger kids, like every one of them is depressed. Every single one of them. Like if you are 13 years old, you automatically have depression. That's what or like some anxiety disorder.
You're just gifted with depression. Sorry, kid.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's sad because like, you know, I dealt with I dealt with some depression, anxiety in high school and a little bit out of high school. I mean, it's not fun at all, but it's like we've kind of, I don't know what the word is, like we've glamorized it, you know, we've romanticized being depressed, having anxiety. And you know, and there's a lot of songs about that, like these celebrities, like Katy Perry, I think, talks about how she has like the word has terrible anxiety and how she needed to take a break from making music because she had such bad anxiety. And it makes me wonder, like, one, is it your life choices that's making you depressed? Are you not taking responsibility? I mean, are you too young to even understand what responsibility is? Like, I just think that
so weird to think that like a 13-year-old would have something to be depressed about, but it's true. Like, there's something going on with society and all this news stuff that's going on. It's just really sad. And I think, I don't know if I agree that depression has really been romanticized. I think it's just ever present and we're all just hyper aware of what's going on. And so honestly, like I've seen quite a few people just straight up delete social media because it's not real. I think our culture right now in this moment is doing that. They're deconstructing this phase. You know, we're kind of getting used to the internet by now. I think that's my opinion.
um I think we could talk about what exactly the internet is for a couple hours by itself. But what I want to touch back on with deleting the social media, because I think, like I said, I think social media is just a bad habit. I talked to this girl, and she really opened my eyes to how, especially, you know, these young girls, how they have such like a beauty standard. And you said that like how we're going over, these 13-year-olds are depressed and they're on social media and they're seeing all this stuff and they're comparing their lives. And it really made me stop and think, because as a man, um, you know, to an extent, I look at other men and I'm like, oh, you know, I wish my arms were as big as his. You know, I wish, you know, I wish I worked out as much as he did. That's about as, you know, maybe I wish I had a nice beard like he did. But it doesn't.
Hell.
Yeah, like it doesn't get much more than that. And then we look at these like 13-year-old girls, and when I was 13, girls my age, some of them wore makeup, some of them, you know, dressed up. So I coach track for high school. I see a bunch of high school kids there, a lot of high school girls, and they're all wearing makeup. They're dressed so much differently, less modest. And it kind of worries me, because it's like I said, when we were kids, like, girls didn't dress like that.
No,
they didn't need to try and impress, and they weren't constantly trying to be compared to on social media, because, you know, when we were in middle school, high school, social media was still kind of a new thing. But these kids now who have grown up with it, I mean, they're seeing this stuff all over. And that's why I think that social media is bad, is because, I mean, one of the many reasons is there's just too much comparison. And these girls are just constantly comparing themselves and constantly feeling inadequate. And so they're forced, you know, to put on more makeup, to dress, you know, more exposing. And we just didn't see that in our generation.
There was really no need for it. Like, what was I worried about at 13? I was playing video games and, you know, hanging out.
And that's and the concern definitely has shifted from, like, man, let's see, I stopped eating dirt when I was, what, 11? Like, no, so just when I was younger, like, seriously, I had, like, you know, we had, you know, like they say, it was simpler times back then. And it, you know, and for every generation it is. But it's like, it seems like today's generation, younger generation, is dealing more with being compared to than ever before. They're trying to reach these standards, you know, these social media standards, try and get the most likes. And it's just sad because you don't know where it's going to.
Yeah, there's no purpose. And so to kind of tie everything together, yeah. So here I am, right? Broken foot Spence. And I'm noticing all of this stuff. I'm having conversations with people and just stuff is happening, but life just keeps moving and people are grabbing on to whatever they can so that they can just be happy, maybe, you know. And I'm reading these articles and listening to these podcasts. Well, Jordan B. Peterson pops up. And lo and behold, this guy, you know, straight up in his lecture, and you know how he is. He's kind of stern. He stands upright and he really speaks his mind. He's like, you don't know anything. Like, you don't know who you are. What you are a fraction of just the big picture. And you're not even you. You're just a reflection of everything that's around you. I was like, good hell. Like what is going on? And so I started diving into his maps of meaning stuff, and I started thinking about who I was, and kind of like you mentioned, we kind of play into these roles in social media, and we play into these people that we ought to be and who we should be. And I just started noticing how very real that was. And so to have Jordan Peterson kind of break things down, just really destroy that paradigm for me, it was really eye-opening, you know? And the thing that sucked the most, it's the allegory of the cave. Are you familiar with Plato's
Yes,
cave?
I'm familiar with that.
Dude, I hate being so excited about something and not being able to talk to anybody about it because everybody looks at you and they're like, that's cool. And that's it. That's all they have to say. And I'm like, okay, let's talk. Come on. Fight me on this. I want to be engaged in something. And nobody's concerned with that. It's because, you know, we're all very turned into ourselves. We all have our own stuff to deal with. And so, yeah, that's what I think about Jordan B. Peterson. He's kind of analyzing the situation, and he, like, with the breakdown of society and of our belief systems. And that's kind of what I saw, you know, with everybody kind of deleting social media, being upset with social media. There's this depression. You see it in all the media. Everybody is just upset. And so what they're doing is they're tearing apart everything that they believed before. They're tearing apart our government. They're tearing apart, you know, all of our social standards. They're all of these SJWs. And I'm not citing on either one of these, but what they're doing is they're taking something and they're saying, okay, this was constructed culturally, and to them, you know, it's not wrong, but it's not right currently. Like we need to mold ourselves. And Jordan B. Peterson, he goes into depth on that, and he's like, this is why. It's because people are upset and they're realizing the stories that they're playing out, and it's not really who they are. And I find that fascinating, man. That's insane.
So I touched up on the very first podcast Jordan Peterson had done with Joe Rogan this morning, just because I was like, I need to catch up. We're going to be talking about it. And this goes to the this discusses the gender pronouns. And like when I stumbled across it, I didn't know much about it. Like I knew there was some kids that were saying that they identified as cats, and that's about as much as I knew about it. Like we had seen Caitlyn Jenner have his sex change, and I was like, okay, like I just wasn't I wasn't diving into it.
What do they call it? It's like there's a term for it. It's
transgender.
No, not transgender. It's like they have, like, you can associate with a worm or grass or really anything. What's the word for that?
I don't know what the word for that is, but there was one. They call it wormkin.
Kin, that's what it is. Kin anything, dude. I'm bedkin right now. I'm so tired.
And there's like fairykin and foxkin, and I think we can tie that in with we have like people don't know who they are, and they just want to avoid the responsibility of trying to figure out who they are, so they just, you know, regress into this. I want to be a fairykin. Like I want to identify as a catkin. It's like they just want the attention, and it's I like mean, I don't
we have our motives, but like That's so foreign. That's so strange.
And I don't know much about like what it feels like to be a woman in a man's body, or to be a man in a woman's body. Like I have no idea what that feels like.
Right, because
But
both you and I are white Caucasian males. You
yeah,
know,
we
well,
are
the
we are the
1% of the
oppressors.
1%, dude. We're going to college and doing our own thing. We can't relate to that at all.
But I don't understand the I'm a fairy. I'm a fox. And there was so the funny thing was with the social justice warriors is so there was a girl who wanted to identify as a man, and she wanted to run for the student body officer at one of these colleges. And Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan discussed this. And so she identified as a man, changed her name to like something crazy. It was like something man queer something. It was a crazy name.
Man queer.
Man queer. And so she identifies as a man, runs for student body officer, wins. And then the college is like, wait a minute. She identifies as a white male. She's the oppressor. And then I think they got her kicked off because she was a white male and she didn't deserve to be a student body officer. And so it's stuff like that. It's like, how far are we willing to go? Like, this is just all lunacy. It's like she identifies as a man, wins student body officer as a man, and then they say she's a white male and they kick her off. Like, I think we're just going too far with it.
That blows me away. So yeah, freaking all this stuff is happening, and we're just falling apart. Society, friendships, relationships, we're all very distant, and we have no idea what the hell is going on. That's the honest truth. We have no idea. And it's kind of exciting because, stuff's happening, but it's kind of scary too.
So that's another reason why I like Jordan Peterson, is because he really talks about taking personal responsibility, and it's through personal responsibility that we will make society as a whole better. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily understand or want to implement into their life, because taking responsibility is hard. Like he says, make your bed, wake up and make your bed. And it's like, it's such a simple rule of advice, just make your bed. But it's like, there's so many simple things like that we could start implementing into our lives, making our bed, doing our dishes, being responsible for ourselves before we try and be responsible for others, and being responsible for society. And so that's another reason why I like him, is he advocates for responsibility. And I think that's I think that's something a lot of people don't have, or don't have control of, is their selves.
Ooh, yeah, that lack of control. Okay, let's get into it. We could harp on Jordan B. Peterson like all day for all the little things that he said and all the clips that we've seen, but let's kind of get into the notes that we've written down, so at least this hour that we're talking is a little cohesive. The first thing that I have down is just the fragility of human life. So yeah, we kind of talked about depression and how scary the world is, how messed up we are, and how we're all dealing with stuff. The thing that I found fascinating in his first lecture and a lot of different talks is just with his almost obsession with how evil people can be. Like the USSR, the Holocaust, Hitler. He probably talks about Hitler every single time he opens his mouth. Right?
Yeah, he does. Him and Stalin, dude. He talks a lot about Carl Jung, and the monster, like how one should develop the monster within them. So yeah, I think. Hold on, I'm looking at my notes real fast. So I think if we look at the 20th century, one thing he talks about is we're not taught about Soviet Russia in school. I learned about World War II. Were you taught anything about Soviet Russia?
Nothing, dude. Not even like Marxism. I had to wait till my third year of college to learn anything about Marxism or foreign ideas, basically.
And that's how I was. I didn't like Jordan was throwing around Marxism this, Marxism that, and I was like, who is Marxism? And this was just last year. I had no idea. And then you look at what happened in Soviet Russia, and you're like, wait a minute, why weren't we taught this? Because this is what the social justice warriors want. You know, they advocate Marxism. They want, you know, they want a communist country. And it's like, then you look at what happened, you're like, oh, good Lord. And so with the fragility of life, what they say, Stalin killed, was it, I think they said 30 to 50 million people. And it's like, oh, it's like one guy did that. And then you look at Mao, which was China, I think.
Yeah.
100 million dead. You look at who was
I'm sorry for laughing. It's just,
oh, I know. And it's like, and the reason why it's not funny because they died. It's kind of
we just don't know about that. We don't talk about it at all.
Yeah. And so fragility of life. I'm just gonna start with something that really like drew my attention was I guess this is more in regards to how easily we can be manipulated into doing things and believing something. Was the people at the concentration camps, the Germans that were running it. Jordan says that if you were in Germany at that time and you were under the Nazi, underneath the Nazi flag, you know, if Hitler rose to power and you were living there, you would have done it too. It's like those were people that were killing people. Like all of the worst things that's ever happened to people was because of people doing it. And I don't know why we're not taught that in school. Yeah, you know, we're taught a little bit about Hitler and Hitler was a bad guy, but it's like there's so much more that we don't understand. And I think in order to, you know, to live our lives, to live in society and to try and work towards it being better, I think we all need to understand what happened in the 20th century and how, you know, fragile, you know, countries got, how fragile society can be, because it took one guy, you know, it took Stalin, it took Hitler, just really one guy to bring about over 100, you know, and Mao, over 100 million people died. It's like, whoa. Yeah. It's like,
it just took one guy to kind of be the kingpin or the voice behind it all. The thing that I love about these lectures is it just talks about, you know, we don't know who we are at all. We don't know what capacity we have to do evil or the anger that can drive somebody to mass genocide. We don't know, or we just don't talk about it, or something has happened. And so we live in these cultures, like you and I, for instance, we live as the 1% of the 1%. We're on the top of the charts as far as reading literacy goes, and college, and status, and what we could do in the future with our careers. Like we have it the best that we can have it. And it could all fall apart. Like, and that's just the thing. We're all just so depressed because we have no idea what our purpose is as human beings. We kind of seatbelt ourselves into the idea of, you know, let's go get a job, let's go get a house, let's go live our lives. And if one or two of those things don't happen, we fall apart. And that's super fascinating.
And it's like, because I think there's a lot of comfort in life. You know, you and I are very comfortable people. Like, you know, our lives are very comfortable. We wake up, there's food in the fridge. There's gas in our car, because, you know, we actually even have a car. We can go to school. We have air conditioning, heating. 100 years ago, people were still farming. People were still, started to go out and get their food. We didn't have giant grocery stores that we could just go to and get whatever we wanted. I mean, you can even have food delivered to you right now to your house if you would like.
Postmates, dude, gotta love it.
And so I think that a big reason why we're so depressed is because, now more than previous generations, is because previous generations had a lot of time filled up. Like I said, like 100 years ago, you had to go milk the cows. You had to go, you had to actually drive if you had a steam powered car, you could drive it. But if not, you had to, take care of the horses that you were going to ride into town. Now it's like you can be anywhere you want in the blink of an eye. And there's so much time opened up that we just fill it with social media. We just fill it with these guilty pleasures that don't do anything for us. And then we get done, looking at Facebook for 6 hours a day because we have 6 hours to look at Facebook. And we get done and then we look at ourselves in the mirror and we're like, why? Like, what did I just learn? What did I just accomplish? And I think that's why there's maybe it's not depression and maybe it's not anxiety. Maybe it's just a void. And we don't know what to fill it with. So we just fill it with all these dumb things like social media, like Snapchat stories and partying and funny Vine videos, because it's like it's enjoyable, it's easy to consume, and we have all the time in the world to do it.
I think, yeah, it's stupid how much time we spend on stupid Snapchat.
I don't even know where I was going with that one. What was your point with that?
It's just that we have such a capacity, as human beings, but we flaunt it on whatever the hell we want to, or like what Jordan says about how we're inculcated into our cultures. Just like you were raised a certain way, like you said, if I was born in Nazi Germany, I would have been a Nazi. Mm-hmm. If I was born in China, I would have a completely different view on honor and family and kind of my role in life. And I was down in Argentina, man, things are completely different down there. So no, that's true. And to see that's very eye-opening. And to expound on that, have you ever had just the craziest paradigm shift ever? Have you ever had that happen to you before?
Yeah, I've had probably 3 or 4.
Yeah. Okay. So here I am thinking about all this stuff, right? And then I realized, in my own life, I was raised in a certain way. And being in Utah, there's a certain, stigma that you have to follow. And if you're not doing that, you're failing, man. You're not doing it right. You're sucking it up at life. And one of the things that I learned about this semester is the idea of Zizek. I think it's Zizek. I don't know if he's a philosopher. No, he's a filmmaker. Zizek. It's Zizek's third pill. And you know the Matrix, right? Red pill, blue pill.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So Zizek comes out and he says there needs to be a third pill. The idea of the Matrix is there. You've got reality and you got the Matrix. Okay. And arguably reality sucks because in reality, we're all harvested by robots and we live in these boxes and they're harvesting our energy, and it's like Alex Jones' nightmare. But in the Matrix, it's fake. So what do? You go between the two. But Zizek says, no, there needs to be a third pill, a green pill. And what the green pill allows you to do is realize the perspective, the situation that you're in, the belief system that you have. You can step out and you can see that, and you can see how it's affecting you and how it's affecting your neighbor and your best friend. And that's all these last few months have been, dude. It's been green pill after green pill after green pill. And it's not like we can step away from the Matrix because that's life. That is what we are in. Because if you take the red pill, right, you leave the matrix, you're going to be nihilistic and upset and just super angry, and you're not going to progress at all because you don't have purpose anymore. There's nothing there for you. And Jordan actually talks about that. He says, you know, people take a healthy dose of truth and they become terrible people because there's nothing there for them. There's absolutely no reason for them to be happy or contribute to society because there is no God. We're on a floating rock in the middle of space, and I can do whatever the hell I want because there's absolutely zero consequence. And that's terrible. If everybody did that, dude, we couldn't function. We'd be back in a natural state where everybody would kill. We'd just be a bunch of chimpanzees running around trying to, you know, bang
So,
and kill off the other chimpanzees.
so with the green pill, so it's just kind of taking a step back, and you said like looking at how what's going on is like affecting you and affecting others close to you.
Well, it's just breathing, man. Like, you know how wound up people can get. You know how wound up you can get. You know, you've had a terrible day at school. You're having some sort of problem with some person, some chica, and you just need to take a step back and realize that you're overthinking things. And that's kind of what the green pill does. It lets you step outside of your belief system, you know, whether you're Christian or you're Mormon or you're you have religion or some idea. You have this idea that keeps you safe. And that's the other thing Jordan Peterson says. You know, people from the beginning of time have had these belief systems to kind of seatbelt them inside this ride we call life. Because at the end, we're all going to die. We're all screwed. Okay. And how we're not upset by that idea alone is beyond me, because death would suck for obvious reasons. But the green pill allows you, or sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The belief system keeps you safe, keeps you happy, and it allows you to function. But with that, you become a marionette of sorts. You become a puppet of the culture that's around you. And by taking that green pill, you can realize when you're acting irrationally, when you're being stupid, just absolutely retarded. It allows you to kind of see why you make the decisions that you're making. And it allows you to become a better person. It allows you to realign yourself to your own purpose and kind of just become better.
So, sorry, there's a spider like right on my wall, and I'm just making sure it doesn't get too close to me. I'm just like, anyway. So I think I like the concept of the green pill, but I think that you can take a green pill when you are deep in nihilism. So, I say so much it's ridiculous. So when I was, let's see, it would have been 2016. I was real low, real nihilistic. There was no hope. There was nothing. There was no happiness. There was no sunshine. It was just rain and dark clouds. And like, you know, we're just on this ball flying a million miles an hour through space, and there's no God. There's nothing, and we're just all gonna die one day. And I might as well just, you know, live as miserably as I can until that day comes. And I had that mentality for about a good, 9 months, and it got real bad, to the point where I was like, it's like the, I can't say his name. It's another word for the devil. It's like the Mephistopheles philosophy, where being would be better if it would have never had been. And it's like, that's where I was like, like maybe it would be better if I wasn't here at all. And when you have that mentality, you're very focused in on yourself. You really only care about how you feel and how things make you feel, even though you feel really bad. And what you do, you really don't care how it affects others. And I think that I took a really big green pill when I realized one day I had someone tell me, they were like, Kaelob, You control how you feel. And I was just like, oh, and I really like kind of stepped back. I was like, okay, how have I been acting, and how has it been, affecting how I felt, where I was going? How is it affecting my relationships, my friendships, my family? How is it affecting those around me? And I think that, so I think that nihilists, people who are really depressed, who are really angry, and if they're angry at the world, if they're angry at other people, that they should take the green pill, that they should step back and say, wait a minute, what else is there? Like what's going on? How is my behavior affecting this, and how is my behavior affecting me? Because I could have easily just stayed on that path, and I could have easily still been on it right now, living this miserable life, miserable mentality. But it was taking that green pill and taking a step back and like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't who I am. Like, this isn't who I should be. Maybe I should change things up a little bit. Maybe I am just overreacting. So now I think the green pill idea is wonderful, but I'm going to kill this spider because it's getting close, man. I'm going to kill it.
Dude, I completely agree, man. The perception that I had of my own life was so strange. And now that all of this stuff has gone down, like, I'm super glad, but taking the green pill does come with its consequences. And I think it added to a lot of stress and anxiety that I had the last few months. I became obsessed with figuring out exactly what I believed and who I was. So, I think it was helpful in the long run, but just, man, all these different ideas. I'm thinking that maybe we should end our first episode here, because we've already harped on a lot of stuff. It was nothing that we really anticipated, but I think it was at least authentic in a way. What do you think?
I mean, I think we could talk for forever.
We really could, though. That's
we
like,
could.
You've shown me your pages. You have an entire freaking book on all the stuff that you've been watching, and I've got just a bajillion ideas. But I think for a first take, this is pretty good, huh?
Yeah, I think it's something we can work off of and look at our structure and stuff. So let's end it, and then you and I just kind of recap when we're offline.
Yeah, totally. So if you watch this video, I'm looking at you, viewer, subscriber. Hey, you're awesome. I know it was a bit different. Basically, we're just two dudes that don't really know anything. We're just talking about life. If you like something specifically, comment. If you want to hear us talk about something, comment. If you want to share something, whether or not it's relevant, I don't care. Comment. Comment down below. We might do these on a bi-weekly basis or whenever we get free time, but the conversation will keep flowing. So thanks for watching. Also, my brother, he's a streamer on Twitch. This is actually his setup. So got a shout out to him, A Grizzy TV. He plays Fortnite pretty regularly. He's in the big leagues now. So go ahead, give him a look up, watch his streams. He's on every night or so. And yeah, thanks for watching. Episode 1 is done.